just amend the Constitution if you wake up and you want to do so. It is a fact that that document, and as again Professor said, it is a document that it tells you what you must do. So if you don't do it, it is intentional. One of the aspects in the Constitution which really helped us tremendously was when in the 5th schedule, it is indicated, according to also Article 261, there are timelines to the passage of laws to give life to many parts of the Constitution. And that is why between a very, very short period, 2010 and 2013, you know, you have legislation about citizenship, about National Human Rights Equality Commission, legislation on land, ethics and corruption, new leadership, legislation. And so when you look at the 5th schedule, you can see the amount of work which was done, and the ambassador sitting here in his quietness was very instrumental. Of course, there was the Attorney General, and there was the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Martha, Kiraitu Martha, later Mutula, even later Wamalwa, and the Office of the President, the relevant ministries. So we, you know, those laws, even the ABC Act, legislation of political parties, recall of MPs, to wind up, yes. So, yes, I'm winding up. So there was therefore that mechanism to make sure that the laws had to be passed. And there was a lot of work. And he very intentionally said, we not only must pass the laws that are 1 year, 18 months, whatever, he said even the ones for 5 years, prepare for them. And that is why in the sequel administration, the administration of Uhuru Kenyatta, some of the laws that were passed were inherited from work that had been done. Therefore, to conclude, so that I don't get into trouble with my senior, maybe when we continue to look at our constitution, perhaps maybe after 2027, we may want to go back to what about the parliamentary system? What about proportional representation? What about strengthening devolution so that we don't have like 47 entities that pay more of the salaries than having provision for development. And strictly speaking, because of all this, that work was done under his leadership, stewardship, we have no deficit of laws. It is a deficit of culture and practice of implementation, so that we have a progressive constitution, and you know, here and in many places in Africa, there is still the one-party ethos guiding the implementation of whatever happens, even when they are progressive constitution. So I thank you very much.
I'm very reluctant to tell Professor Kibwana to sit down because he is always extremely interesting and worth listening to. Professor Kibwana, your work in Makueni County is now subject of study, and I know some foreigners and local Kenyan young scholars want to know what sort of development went into Makueni and how you did it yourself. I would like to ask Professor Peter Kagwanja to come and tell us something about the Look East foreign policy under the Kibaki administration. Professor Kagwanja, actually he's the youngest of all these scholars you see here, but that's why he's the most active. And he was a graduate student when I knew him at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in the US, before coming to work in South Africa, then eventually to come to work for the government here, including the party, the Democratic Party. So Professor Kagwanja, And please don't exceed.
Yeah, I'll keep time.
You're a diplomat, I know you. Please.
Excellency, Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka, our former Vice President, our former Deputy President, Mheshimiwa Gachagua, my friend, former Minister, my in-law, I must say that, my brother-in-law, Eugene Wamalwa, our patron, former Minister Munyao, our chairman, our distinguished friend and mentor in many ways, Mheshimiwa Francis Mudhaura, and others. I think I was to start with a statement that kind of prefaces the whole of this meeting, which is that Kenya is a resilient nation. We are a resilient people. We shall surely rise like that proverbial phoenix from the ashes and rise again. Because one of us, as President Mwai Kibaki did, will rise up, be a man of integrity, be a man of Solomonic wisdom, being a man of untold patience, and guide us through the thick and bring us to the right. That man will always rise in this country. For centuries to come, Kenya will go through difficulties, but somehow God will always bring another Kibaki to look after us. I think that's the message of hope we want to share today. So that we should not give up, we should not get angry. It is going to be the cycles of our lives. I was not associated with President Mwai Kibaki as one of his cabinet ministers, as Professor Chega said. I didn't get there. What I did is that when he visited South Africa in 2004, his first state visit, I was one of the team that welcomed him with Ambassador Tabitha Sei and others. And we had a moment of talking. And somehow, when he came back, I was appointed to head the team that drafted Kenya's first ever foreign policy document, which now became our foreign policy accepted in 2014 by the cabinet, and which was revised this year. I also headed his team that established Kenya's foreign policy institute, and today called Academy, whose aim was to ensure that Kenyans understand that our foreign policy is family rooted in our national interests. Third, in 2007, I was asked to join his technical strategy team for his re-election campaign. Very challenging time for us who lived that time. Four, I headed his technical team in the negotiation for the 2010 Constitution, internal negotiations with the opposition that time, which was already in the government. And he appointed me as his executive director to head the referendum, both as a strategist and also as a manager of the campaign. And we did well, and he was happy with that. We got 70%, and we got a new constitution. And finally, I was asked to help advise on the transition from 2010 to 2013. A very difficult task for anybody, extremely difficult, because democracies have difficulties transiting or having peaceful transitions. But somehow, he managed to have one of the most peaceful transitions from himself to President Uhuru Kenyatta. And the country has continued from that stability. So I was privileged as a scholar to be in the back rooms and to give my intellectual feedbacks. I think when I first met Ambassador Mudhaura in my first ever meeting with him, he told me, Professor, we know what we are doing. We meet every day and make decisions. So don't come here and tell us what to do. Tell us what we are doing wrong. A very difficult task, because how can you tell what is going wrong if you are not part of what's going on. So, but we made it, and it was challenging time, but we made it. I remember at a certain stage, I worked very closely with Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka in many ways. And when he left for COD, I think I followed him at that time. Now, I want to zero my remarks very quickly on his foreign policy, and I won't go to the details of it. But I want to spell out the principles that guided Kibaki's foreign policy. First, Kibaki ideologically believed that we need a developmental state. So he disagreed with the World Bank and the IMF that we need to have a lean, non-interventionist state. For Kibaki, the state is important in steering development and also pulling people out of poverty. So the state is important. And he, in that light, was identifying with the young tigers in Eastern Asia, which had already managed to pull themselves from poverty and to bring about development. And that was the main linchpin of his foreign policy, that our foreign policy is developmental, and everywhere it goes, it has to be developmental. Second, Kibaki created a foreign policy that was driven by knowledge. Not only knowledge of ourselves, which was based in Vision 2030, but knowledge of other nations and what they mean to us. Not what they mean to themselves and to others, but what they mean to us. And I'm going to explain that further. And therefore, in this foreign policy, which is based on knowledge, we need men and women of knowledge. We need to put our best and ablest in public offices, in foreign missions, as envoys, and that is the only way we can succeed. He believed strongly in the idea of meritocracy in our diplomacy. Without meritocracy, without having our best out there, those with the technical knowledge, those with scientific knowledge, we cannot go far. Third, President Kibaki based our foreign policy on our national interest, not on what he believed in, not on what those in his government believed in, but what we knew as our foreign policy. I know he asked the National Security Council to define clearly what our national interests are. I teach at the National Defense University, and anytime, because that's the course I teach, I always go through them without change because they are cast in concrete. Top of those is our development, our national economic development. The fourth and the final pillar is a foreign policy propelled by 1, Kenyan nationalism, 2, Pan-Africanism, and 3, principles of humanism internationally, that all human beings are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights and powers as well. And therefore, the foreign policy is subordinated to the interest of our people. It cannot serve individual interest. And what did he do about the orientation of this foreign policy? I know Professor Chege has talked about Kibaki Rook East policy. No, Kibaki's policy was not neither Rook East nor Rook West. It had 4 aspects to it. 1, it was African-centered. Kenya is an African state. We are guided Pan-Africanism as our ideology, and our interests of Africa come first before any other interest. And therefore, we are Afrocentric in our orientation. Second, we Rook West. We re-Rook West. Listen, re-Rook West. He said we cannot abandon traditional relationship with the West. But what we need to do is to subordinate those relationships with the West to our national interest. And therefore, in addition to our embassy in London, he decided that we are going to open a new embassy in Dublin. And people are asking, why do we have to have 2 embassies? Because Dublin was the European capital of IT. This is where the technology was at that time really flourishing. Without that move, I'm not sure we would have made M-Pesa, because Kibaki knew that we need to deepen ourselves in doubling and the European technological movement so that we become a technological nation. And that's why Kenya is the leading African nation in technology. There's no other move. He also decided that we are going to Madrid, Spain, whereas Madrid was never, Spain was never a colonizer in Africa. Why? Because Spain is a source of our technology, it's also a source of tourists who want to come to Africa, and many other aspects that were coming in. So that is what we are calling relooking the West, not abandoning the West, but looking deeper into the West from the prism of our national interest. Third, we look east. And by east, he did not define it as China. He said we look at the whole east, including Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on. But more primarily to China. Why? Because these are emerging economic powerhouses. And they had deep resources that we could tap to finance our development, particularly our infrastructure. I was part of the delegation of the government to New York, I think around 2006, when we wanted to refurbish our railway, to build a new railway. And that proposal was put before the World Bank by President Kibaki's team. It was rejected, and they said, refurbish the old railway, privatize it, and then all will be given unto you. After doing that, the railway essentially grounded to a halt, and 95% of our cargo had to move by road, and the consequences are familiar to us. So President Kibaki went to China with a very singular issue. We need to open our infrastructure, our roads, our railways, our ports, and all the arteries of our economy. That was what Look East policy was like. But Kibaki did not just look east. Finally, he looked south. And looking south here meant that we went to Brazil, and there we got our airlines, the Embla and others. So we looked elsewhere. So those are the four orientations of Kibaki's legacy. And in conclusion, let me say this. In line with President Kibaki's legacy, in decades and centuries to come, Kenya will have its raw moments. But one of us will rise and will lift us from that rawness and bring us to greatness, bring us to prosperity, bring us to self-pride as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Kagwanja. You kept within time. Honorable Norman Nyaga, my kid brother, welcome. I would like to welcome a distinguished gentleman, President Kibaki's Minister for Trade and Industry, a distinguished career which began as my student, I must say, one of the most distinguished students I've ever taught. I think he taught me more than I taught him. And in politics, and very dedicated man to the welfare of our country. And professionally, so competent, the world had to listen to him as Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, first Kenyan, to my knowledge, to head a specialized agency of the United Nations and do it so competently as well. Moise.
The family of the late President Mwai Kibaki, Your Excellencies, party leaders, you have all been recognized. The only ones who have not been recognized individually are our flavor of the month, Justin Muturi. My whip when I was a minister under Kibaki, Norman Nyaga. Ladies and gentlemen, for purposes of turning this into a conversation involving all of you, I will keep within the time limit, but also say things that others have not said. quite a bit of what I wanted to say has been said, particularly by Professor Kagwanja, aligning national, international, and domestic policy with identified national priorities. But if you may allow me, I want to reminisce, not in a way of remembering what Kibaki did, but in raising our collective challenge of the moment in the light of how Kibaki dealt with it. And for this, I think I start with a sound reading of the situation. I start with the earliest time I had intense interaction with the late president was around the year 2000, when we were trying to build a coalition of the opposition. And what he was exuding of as a leader was being so comfortable in your own standing that you don't try too hard to impose yourself as the leader. That through the period when we were bonding, it was very difficult. There were real spoilers, and normally you were present. You could hear Mwai Kibaki, Martin Shikuku go off about you Kikuyus and what you have done to us. And Matu Amai reply with how much we have the money and we have the people, will just remember and sympathize with you. But Kibaki had to rein in all these extremes and accommodate without overemphasizing his role as the leader. But to me, this also indicated an underlying strength that Kibaki had, and it ran through his leadership. He was clever enough to know that he was not adequate in everything. I never know clever people who think they know everything. When you find such people, they're not clever. Yeah. And being adequately clever meant that he tried to identify talent that he could nurture, but he could also assign responsibilities to persons that he thought could perform. But to me, the most important evidence of his sense of clever enough to feel inadequate was the importance he placed on the creation of a National Economic and Social Council. I think one of the most important features that really set up the beacons for the Kibaki presidency was to say, if you are sailing without a rudder, you can end up where you came from instead of the right destination. And you cannot overstate the importance of the National Economic and Social Council and one of its products, Vision 2030, in aligning immediate political priorities with long-term identified national agenda that is depersonalized, that is not a Kibaki agenda, but an agenda for Kenya. Secondly, the humility of Kibaki surprised many of us when we were building the early phase of the government. Like many of you can remember, within the very first cabinet meeting I think we had, President Kibaki introduced to cabinet a proposal that we donate Cabernet Gardens to Daniel Arap Moi. At that time, some ministers were telling Kano people, you sit back, you didn't know how to rule, we show you how to rule, you are thieves. But here's a president who has been humiliated by Moi for years, saying, let us get out of the way a sense that we can be vindictive. Let us be larger than the conduct and behavior of those from whom we are taking power. Can we have the strength to say, we retire you with respect and donate to you a public asset you did not steal for all the years you were president? I want to finish off with a bit about humility, because recently I listened to something and I said, can you imagine President Mwai Kibaki saying, don't you know I am the president? When you are not adequate in yourself that you are holding an office, you look for external assurances that you are actually the boss, that you're holding that office. But Kibaki was too big for that kind of pettiness. And every time I hear anybody say, don't you know I am what? I miss Mwai Kibaki. Now, when Kibaki appointed me minister, there are 2-3 areas that were immediately challenging and important to us. With the Right Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, we were members of Council of East African Community, and were in the final phase of negotiating a customs union for East Africa, which we did around Christmas 2005. The challenges we had were the contrasting national interests of Tanzania and Kenya, and Tanzania and Uganda, and Kenya and Uganda. For example, Tanzanians consume much more wheat in chapati than anybody else in East Africa in per capita terms. And therefore, as a country without production of any significant quantities of wheat, Tanzania will always want the cheapest, the lowest duty on wheat because of the chapati interest. Now, Kenya has some wheat farmers, like Laikipia and a few other places, not sufficient for our national interest, but requiring some protection from cheap wheat brought in under a low tariff on wheat products. And there we were, stuck in discussions with Tanzania, and we'll come back to Mwai Kibaki, and he says, lazima tuonyeshe interest kwamba tunataka huu umoja wetu, it is important to us, but don't sacrifice Kenyan farmers for that umoja. Similarly, we had a challenge with Uganda. The state in Uganda was dominated by mercantilist capitalists, importers of low-cost merchandise from Eastern Asia, and trying to quickly turn a profit. But Kenya had a manufacturing base for some of the things Ugandan merchants were importing. So while Kenya wanted to protect capital goods and protect finished products which can be made in Kenya from being liberalized, Uganda wanted as low a tariff as possible on imports of goods which would be sold around. But you know, as we walked this tight road of keeping friends, but also defining what is in the national interest, Kibaki was giving us two directions. We must belong together and only make concessions if we can now create domestic policy to become competitive and defeat the threat that comes with those concessions. If we're liberalizing wheat, what shall we do not to kill the wheat production in Kenya? If we want to be friends with Uganda, how can we not sacrifice the people who are making some significant products that are otherwise being imported cheaply by the traders who want to lower tariffs on those finished goods? I say this because aligning actual national production interest with treaty building was a feature of leadership that has disappeared in our politics. Today is like we put saliva on the finger and we check where the direction of the wind is. Today I want that to be my friend, whether it is Kosovo or it is the rapid deployment forces. You say, how does this align with the national interest? There was no such conversation. But there's also something that I want to say that has not been properly mentioned. Mwai Kibaki believed in cabinet government. The president had ideas of what he wanted done, but he was ready to modify or even suspend those ideas on the basis of discussion within the cabinet. I was impressed at how in some of the areas he knew better than most of us, but he had the humility as a leader to give every person a chance. And then when we're coming towards the end, he says, is there anybody who's opposing that position? For those of us who have not been in another cabinet, we're outraged when we hear about persons who use cabinet as a rubber stamp of personal decisions, because it never worked under Kibaki. And that way it gave us a strength to prosecute what the president was declaring in public, because we owned it as part of collective government. I had the privilege to be part of a delegation of Mwai Kibaki on a state visit to Thailand. And at the state dinner, I asked the Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, who had been one of the most successful leaders in the Eastern Asian financial crisis at the turn of the century, what he had done for Thailand to recover from the financial crisis so rapidly compared to others. And when Shinawatra said, what we did is to believe that if a tree is wilting, you don't pour water to the leaves, you pour at the stem, that you start building from the bottom, the most effective bottom-up thinking. And it struck me so much, as so similar to what Mwai Kibaki had done in Kenya. In the first few months of becoming president, he brought through cabinet an urgent resolution that we buy back KCC, the Kenya Creameries, which had been taken off by Mwai and his son and a few others. And we got it back, and it immediately had an impact on the resuscitation of the dairy industry in this country. So walking the talk believing that you align your international engagements with domestic responsibilities. And when you identify inadequacies, you deal with them. And importantly, reducing government borrowing in the domestic money markets to make credit affordable by entrepreneurs were key drivers to turning around a country which had problems similar to what we have today, but leadership was very different. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kitui. Always grateful to hear from you. Honorable Gathonio Mochomba, MP for Githunguri, welcome. I would like to find out whether we could get that video clip from Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o. The import here, ladies and gentlemen, is to show you how a country in macroeconomic distress, in serious distress, makes a quick recovery with an impact on its ordinary citizens. And the people at the center of it was a gentleman we have here, the present governor of Kisumu, and a dear friend of mine, Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o. He did this video clip just for this purpose for us because he was unable to be with us. But he's so devoted to the work he did with President Kibaki, turning the economy around, that he felt it was necessary to send us this message. Professor Nyong'o.
The governor of Kisumu, and I've been governor for Kisumu and now my secretary. Good morning. Mike, thank you for asking me to give a brief on what we did with the economic recovery strategy for wealth and employment creation in 2002. You know, the National Rainbow Coalition government had just come into power after a long period of fight for reforms, both for democracy as well as economic and social development in our country. So we decided to have a series of discourses with people before we could put anything in paper regarding our development program. So we called several meetings. One of them, which was very important, was the one we call at Leisure Lodge at the coast, with a cross-section of people, private sector, unions, development partners, government officials, investors. It's a very robust meeting where they said, okay, look, here we are, we're all Kenyans, we're all interested in the future of this country. We are in the government, we have a reform project, a reform program. The idea is we would like first to deal with poverty in this country, and secondly, to open a democratic space for our people. Doing the two things together sometimes is difficult, but I think with the working relationship among all of us, we can do it. We have a spirit, or we can do it. Nobody else is going to do it for us. Contributions were made, and people agreed on one thing, that we must have a project for creating wealth and fighting poverty. And that is why we call it economic recovery strategy for wealth and employment creation. It's only when people have where to work, in other words, employers, that they can have salaries. So wealth creation and employment and poverty reduction go together, really, as it were. It was at that meeting, too, that the private sector allowance was born. I remember having lunch with my friend, very non-businessman in Nairobi, we went for lunch, and I said, look, why don't we have the private sector get together and stimulate one voice, really, or be more coordinated in communicating with government, because government is one, the private sector has a situation, manufacturers, fine, they're fine, but I think if we have a coordinated approach to this thing, it might fight better, and the private sector allows to there by all. So these discussions that we established the Economic and Social Council, which was going to be an arena for the meeting between the private sector and the government and professionals and interest groups and so on, which would then discuss government policy with us, but also rally the voice of the non-governmental organizations, the private sector, unions and so on, to support it. And I want to talk briefly about what I did or we did together for North Municipal Planning and National Development, the rolling out of the economic recovery strategy for wealth and celebrate year after year what we did, because the economic recovery strategy improved the economy, growing at 2% within the year, so it was 7%. And that continued towards the life of the NAC government, and the impact of the NAC government in terms of the future of Kenya is even felt today.
Is that it? Well, I should add, okay, now the role that was played by the private sector, the International Investors Conference that we had in Kenya in building up confidence in the country, raising net inflows of direct foreign investment, using aid well. An awful lot of that had to do with the origin of what was said at the very beginning, raising revenue. The president's very precise directions to raise domestic revenue. With the revenue in, government not having to borrow from the private sector meant there was enough liquidity in the banks. And his own genius, he decreed the central bank lower the cash reserve ratio, the amount of cash for security in the banking system that the central bank, our banks were flush with cash. They didn't know what to do, so they came to you, the citizens, something Kenyans have not seen for a long time, and gave the citizens the privilege and the power to change their own destiny. Good policy, good thinking. Because this is our second lecture series, I'd like to recognize the role Ambassador Muthaura played. He was the speaker last year, but unfortunately he had a tragedy at home, he couldn't be with us. And I want to recognize Ambassador Muthaura for the critical role he played in those days in coordinating the experts, the academics, and us. Actually, without him, very little could have done, because he is capable of working on 10 fronts at the same time, calmly and excitedly. And that helped our country. People may not recognize this, but we owe him as a country a lot. Thank you, Ambassador Muthaura, for what you did. We will have questions and answers from, before we come to the final conclusion, from the audience. So please be precise. Just one question, if you like, please, directed to a particular speaker. We just got like 10 minutes or that, 15 minutes of that, and then we wind up so that we can prepare for the next session. Yeah. Professor Naitula, is he here? Is he here? We got a message, you wanted to ask a question, it's not here. Okay, fine.
We'll try to limit the question 3 for every panelist.
Yeah.
So we can go.
Yeah. If you just raise a question, raise your hand if you, and a comment. And if you say the government did well in the Kibaki years, that would be good too. Yes, and please tell us who you are, your institutional affiliation.
Thank you very much. My name is Saroni Jesse. I'm a student leader and part of a member of a Democratic Party. And I think I joined the Democratic Party because, as a very young individual, because of the excitement that I saw among my elders of the promises that Kibaki was going to deliver. And when I got of age, I chose Democratic Party to join. I chose to join Democratic Party because of the belief that Kibaki had on the potential of our country. My question will go to Professor Kibwana, and it will be about the political challenges that we are facing as a country. If it were Kibaki, if Kibaki was the head of the country, what are some of the things that he would have done to be able to make every individual in Kenya to feel involved and to feel that to feel respected and to be able to calm the situation? Thank you very much.
Okay. You can have 2 or 3, and then I'll give the panel. So please note, Professor Kibwana. Yes, up here. You need a mic? Yeah, here. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Honorable Mercy Gapia, 12th Parliament, Kasarani constituency. My question is to Professor Kisa
Kitui.
Doctor. What would it take Mwai Kibaki, if he was there, on how was he doing it to sack or to fire cabinet minister? What was the process or the procedure?
Okay, thank you, Mheshimiwa. Yeah, one more question on this side. Yeah. Yeah, the gentleman. Yeah. Yeah.
My name is James Murigo. I'd like to talk to Kibwana. At the time we were working on the constitution, it was said that Honorable Mwai Kibaki was having us 14 counties. We ended up with 47. Now, these 47, we argued at that time that they are going to be an economic burden to this country. Where did we go wrong?
Thank you, Mr. Murigo. Just one more question at the back, and then I'll give the...
My name is Kelvin Kishayan. I'm a student leader at the University of Nairobi. I've not yet joined any political party, but I can see the right personnel here to propel me somewhere. My question is to Professor Kibwana. What do you think the systems then, when President Kibaki was in office, what do you think were the systems that he put in place that we cannot have in the current government system? Because in Kenyan as a history, you could hear a lot about what Kibaki did. Most of the things that are there, it's because of Kibaki. What do you think? And what leadership qualities set President Kibaki apart? And how can current leaders emulate those traits? And one last one to Professor Mukisa Kitui. How did President Kibaki's economic strategies, such as Vision 2030 and free primary education, shape Kenya's long-term development trajectory? Thank you.
Okay. I'll give the panel a chance to respond. Dr. Musa Kitui, there are 2 questions addressed to you.
Yes,
please.
thank you. There were times when President Mwai Kibaki eased ministers out of office. The largest is after the vote on oranges and bananas. He basically disbanded cabinet and reconstituted it. But the other is when a minister was mentioned in a suspected scandal, he asked him to step aside pending investigation. And that he did when to his closest friends, like the late Minister for Finance, David Mwerara. But he never ever asked Kibaki, will go after he has fired you to start saying you are stupid, you are incompetent, you are what in public. Secondly, if I may just take a take at counties, I was one of those people who ardently believed that at this stage of development, Kenya could not afford a new constitutional order which created 47 counties. You will suck all development resources into recurrent expenditure because of a bloated public bureaucracy. Unfortunately, it is extremely difficult democratically to get Kenya legislate to reduce the number of counties today. But this is a burden we have, which sometimes makes some people say, we wish there was an constitutional method of reorganizing things again. About what was shaped by Vision 2030, one of the most important contributions of Mwai Kibaki to Kenya's politics is the creation of free primary education, which has given us a generation of educated Gen Z who are rising above our generational responsibility and doing a lot to give hope in a state of hopelessness. But also, Vision 2030 showed us he who has no destination cannot get lost. Those who lead without a destination where they're trying to take the country can go around in circles and think that popping up on top of levels at public rallies is purpose of leadership.
Thank you, Musa. Prof.
I appreciate the fact that two of the questions are from young people who are getting interested in the leadership of our country. And the first question was, given the current political problems that exist, suppose President Kibaki was the one to deal with them, how would that happen? The first way it would happen is most probably the problems would not be there. If they were, it would be, a small level of the problems, because as I tried to say earlier, he was interested in actually getting this country to a good place. That was his, priority from when he began his political academic career and political career. But something that is very critical, which is not normally mentioned a lot, is in terms of youth affairs, like I was, through also Ambassador Uzalendo, my docket of advising was extended to youth affairs. And he created the first youth ministry, and a very, very able permanent secretary for that ministry. And, the genesis of those youth funds, even the possibility of youth organization. Those were things that subsequently were not emphasized. And as a result, if we were even to go back to the legislation, the programs that
Kalonzo, you want to leave
President Kibaki had initiated regarding
after
the
I
youth.
speak.
The youth would be included.
After I speak,
Not
you
just
close it and
not
then
by,
let me come and call
After I speak, I'll wind up.
by standards.
you. So that
And I think even from the experience of, particularly towards 2010, making the Constitution, he more or less sent everybody who was in government to go and talk to the people about the benefits of this Constitution so that there's no confusion. And that was some of the most critical, in my view, public participation that was done to midwife the Constitution. And therefore, that idea of you need a conversation with your people so that they can ease whatever decisions must be taken. I think that was also foundational. So I think there are many lessons to be learned there. And, the question about his leadership qualities, what would happen today if again it's similar. He was to we were to use his thinking, to use his method to get us out of problems. We described, like in the initial stage, I described some of what we thought, and even Mukisa, Professor Kagwanja, Professor Chege, what he put on the table, what he offered, what he wanted to mentor people to emulate, people to have space to learn how to be leaders, so that you didn't feel frightened that you could do wrong. Even if you say things that were not correct, there would be, he would talk to you privately, and that became a good thing. I think one of the as I conclude, one of the issues that is a problem in our country is this idea of not building on what has been laid before. Because when you prioritize building on a foundation, like when we got the Constitution, when we got what President Kibaki did, the more you build on that through President Uhuru Kenyatta currently, then you are successful. But if a time comes and maybe in recent times you decide that you want to start more or less afresh, and it's not clear how that afresh is, then the country does not benefit from firm foundations. And that is why I think when one looks at our country, although I will discuss with Professor Chege to tell us how we evaluate presidents, I think we can really say Kibaki stands shoulder of others, and UK learned quite a bit from him, and Jomo Kenyatta, the earlier one, it was difficult to start, and then of course Mwai, and in that kind of, not ranking, in that kind of thinking, I cannot include the current president because he's still serving.
Thank you. Yeah. Briefly, Prof.
No, I'll be brief, and I'll go to the issue of the counties. I think it is important for Kenyans to know that the counties that have emerged are a compromise of decades of divisions amongst ourselves. Those who are familiar with the history of Kenya remember something called Majimbo. And Majimbo simply meant dividing the country into the provinces that were there, which we now call regions. And mostly the debate was very ethnic and very toxic. And largely this is what brought us to 2007. Therefore, as we were going to Naivasha as a technical team to support the parliamentary committee, President Kibaki called Professor Kibuda, myself, and a few others and said that we are going there for compromises, we are not going for fights. But something must be put on the line. That one, we cannot afford the 3 tiers of government, because that's what the proposals were about. We can only afford 2 tiers, 2 levels of government. And if we have 2 levels of government, then we also need to have 2 chambers, or 2 chambers of parliament, the upper house and the lower house, whatever you call it. But he also said that whether we adopt these counties or whatever, we need one center of accountability. Whether you call him prime minister, you call him president, we want one center of accountability. And we are coming from a very distinct history where we knew that we were having conflict in the power sharing government. A lot of confusion in terms of mandates and in the pecking order. So proposals came, and I remember some said 28 regions, others said, but Nakuru and Laikipia were big issues. And finally, we decided to agree on what the British had left behind, which were the districts, we turned them into counties, and then we recognized Nairobi. That was the most innovative part. Nairobi as a county, and recognized Sabatia, Sabatia and Makueni, and a few others that had been upgraded, I think, by 1974 as additional counties, 1992 as counties. So Makueni, Mwenge would have wanted to be a county by itself because it's large enough and could have been one. But in Meru, Tharaka-Nithi had been. So the point is, understand the counties were a product of very bitter and contested history. And with their coming, they did something to us. They ended the rankles around Majimbo and the ethnicization of our politics that went around Majimbo. But in terms of development, the counties were not supposed to be receiving money. So there is a problem that's going on along here. They were supposed to be the one taking money upwards because they have the resources. They have the land, they have the housing and everything. So they were to be the basis of our economic development. I hope in the future we'll be able to flip the point and the counties become the foundation of our development, rather than what we're now seeing happening.
Okay, yeah.
Using resources to improve on our economy. Thank you.
Let me bring this session to an end by thanking my panel and Professor Nyong'o, but say the following. As far as leadership is concerned, and this is winding up, ladies and gentlemen, leadership is very important, but also equally important, the ideas and the intellectual depth that comes with those ideas. The world could do with a Mwai Kibaki. Kenya could do with a Mwai Kibaki. Last night, for the first time, we got the news that US Treasury bills are being dislodged into the market at a discount for the first time ever in the last 80 years. US 10-year Treasury bills had a yield of 4.9% 2 days ago and going up. It's come down somewhere, and this is the reason why Trump backed up a little bit on these tariffs. This affects us, ladies and gentlemen. We are borrowers in the international money market, and that route is now forever closed for us. What do we do? As it is today, both the United States and Russia can decide, regardless of international law, that Russia is entitled to Crimea, which was occupied in 2014, perhaps half, perhaps all of Ukraine, and who knows what else. And that one country is talking about taking over Greenland. It's not a joke. And Canada is a 51st state, and they have the power to do it. I ask African countries, if this is the way things are going to go at a political level, what is going to stop some God knows who from moving into our territory and saying, well, I love this place, it's mine? Look at what is happening in the South China Sea on boundaries, and you realize we're in a very testy situation. I miss the logic and advice of Mwai Kibaki in moments like this. We would have looked at the trend in the international financial markets, which Trump did not anticipate, whose roots we don't even know exactly what it could be China and other countries divesting from TBs, but they only hold 30% of the stuff, so we don't know what's going on. But to look at these difficult issues with sincere depth and honesty, and it is not going to be easy in the system in which we have now. I'm happy that the family of the President Mwai Kibaki has enabled us to come and celebrate this morning with him. He belonged to you in the first place, but he belonged to the world. President Kibaki was mentioned by the Time magazine as one of the most promising leaders as early as the 1970s. In the 1980s, when he was in difficulties here politically, and we know now from the archives, McNamara, who was president of the World Bank, former defense secretary, asked him to come over to Washington and be a vice president of the World Bank. He said no. To his credit, Kenya mattered to him more than being in that position. And McNamara had a good reason to invite him. The only finance minister who really put him to task, and in the terms that the World Bank was negotiating to Africa in the 80s, was President Mwai Kibaki. Without boasting, without knowing, with calmness and humility. God bless his soul. God bless Kenya.
A big round of applause for the panelists. Professor Kagwanja at the end, thank you so much. Professor Kivuda Kibwana, Dr. Mukisa Kitui, and Professor Michael Chenge. Asanteni sana. Let's give them a better round of applause. Asanteni sana. Now we move to the third session for this program today. And first, I want to recognize, thank you, the panelists. I think you're recognizing our guests as they walk in, and that made my work a little bit easier. But just to repeat, we recognize the presence of Honorable Justice Muturi, Honorable Norman Nyaga, Honorable Jane Kihara. Tafadhali tuwapigie makofi. Honorable Gathoni wa Moshomba, Ambassador Ephraim Ngari, Dr. S.K.R. Ndegwa, Mr. Kibunga Karivi, Mr. James Mwiregu, Mr. Shah, a big supporter of DP, Mr. James Kamonye. We have John Ngumi, family of Monene Cairo, Mr. Madenge Wanderi. We have Honorable Kate Waruguru. I come from Laikipia, so I have to. We also recognize the presence of University of Nairobi students here and the student leaders, Mangu High School students, and all of you, of course, present today. Makofi jamani. It's 17 minutes past noon, and we want to stick to our program. And I'm kindly requesting Dr. Jacob Haji to come and lead us in the next session. And here, Jacob, I think, will do justice as we celebrate a consequential leader, an intellect, an incredible expertise in finance, and that is the legacy we're celebrating today.
Thank you, Juma. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our program will change a little bit because our Vice President, the person who works with our Mzee, a second command that time, he want to leave us, and I want to give him this opportunity to come and to talk to us, and then since he has worked with him for that 5 years, and let us give him round of applause and say hi to us.
Thank you so much. Well, the family of late President when I see Sister Judy, I see Kibaki. I know the rest of you, Kenneth David, are all here. Because it got to a stage where Judy was quite a presence. Well, I want to thank the panelists for some very exemplary remarks about President Mwai Kibaki. And I also want to thank the organizing committee. I will be short on protocol because I may be mentioning Ambassador Muthara in my remarks. I thought I should place this on record. And the reason is I didn't have the time because of, if you remember when we laid President Mwai Kibaki to rest, it was quite an occasion. And I didn't have the opportunity to say one or two things. Ambassador Muthara eloquently actually represented all of us then. Therefore, if you allow me, I want to read my short remarks. April 22nd is a date embedded in my mind and thoughts since the death of our beloved third President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Mwai Emilio Kibaki. When I learned that a group of eminent Kenyans launched the Mwai Kibaki Annual Memorial Lecture to keep the memory and ideas of this African icon alive 2 years ago, it warmed my heart and spirit. This is a befitting endeavor worthy of the icon we honor today and the yardstick we judge any Kenyan leader against. Such was his measure. I first met President Mwai Kibaki when I was elected to Parliament in 1985. Oh my goodness, it's actually been 40 years since. On the 10th of this month, marked my 40th anniversary as a leader, having been elected to Parliament then. I met him when I was elected as a young member of Kitui North constituency following a by-election. I was young, and he was a Vice President of the Republic of Kenya, as well as Minister for Home Affairs. I was a greenhorn, and Kibaki had been feted not just nationally, but internationally, as a finance minister who steered the economy with sound fiscal discipline for over 13 years during the First Republic. Internationally respected Time magazine, as has been mentioned, had in 1974 named Kibaki in the top 100 people in the world with the potential to lead. The Time editors had foresight and believe in Kibaki, perhaps even more than Kenyans themselves. 28 years after that heralded article, Mwai Kibaki took the oath of office as the President of the Republic of Kenya. As the Deputy Speaker of our National Assembly, I witnessed firsthand his oratory masterclass. He was an orator, a script writer, not like Malala perhaps, but very close to that. The august floor was his stage and always sold out. When the National Rainbow Coalition won the historic 27 December 2002 general election, President Kibaki appointed me as his first Minister for Foreign Affairs, and then our relationship became more personal. It is that forge of trust and faith, I believe, that allowed President Kibaki to reach out to my party, ODM Kenya as it then was, to save and rescue our nation state following the post-election 2007 violence. Together, we formed what was the first coalition and first negotiated position in the name of the Office of the Vice President. I then had the honor and privilege to be sworn in as the 10th Vice President of our country on the 9th of January 2008. President Kibaki made everyone feel at home. He would get our nation loving, don't you all remember? Even when I was faced with difficult moments, he would actually say to enjoy. And when things became a little tougher, as an elder statesman, he would call you harsher things. And one time he famously said that because of the Mlolongo system of voting that time, and he had been rigged out of his Othaya constituency, he actually said that even rigging required some intelligence. That was Kibaki. President Kibaki would even other times say very hard things, and you got away with it. President Kibaki listened and he empowered his lieutenants. He was not a micromanager. He reduced taxation across the board and did away with unnecessary and prohibitive laws. President Kibaki's leadership led to the unprecedented 7% growth of our economy, as we've heard, from 0.6%. Our infrastructural growth was self-evident, as was a commitment to economic recovery strategy and Vision 2030, as we've just heard from men who worked very closely with him in that regard. President Kibaki was an iconic father figure, a selfless, beloved, and brilliant leader, and his legacy will live on through countless generations. It was my greatest honor and singular privilege remarkably that was him. And you remember he's the first person to say, you will not have a national currency having anybody's head printed on it. And he lived to actually see that happen. One of his least eroded qualities was his ability to restore our constitutional ambition, and we have heard from Professor Kibaki Kibwana, was his advisor in that space, come out very clearly on the steps that were undertaken. Less than 5 years from the costly defeat by the people of the Wako constitutional draft at the November 2005 referendum, President Kibaki promulgated the 2010 Constitution of Kenya on the 27th August 2010. Actually, after that referendum, I found myself missing from the newly constituted cabinet. I was not the only one. Raila Odinga was also missing. That was Kibaki, and he never followed you up with nasty utterances. Kenya has President Kibaki to greatly thank, and we owe him a debt of gratitude, because our constitution is heralded as one of the most progressive constitutions in Africa, if not the world. It is his constitution that now more than ever holds the fabric of our nation together at these grave and perilous times. Allow me to, for example, because if Kibaki was here, he wouldn't himself shy away from dealing with this matter. Yesterday, Kenya and the world witnessed the most unfortunate assault on democracy, when security agents, acting on orders from above, lobbed tear gas at young students of Butere Girls High School and members of the press at the National Drama Festival in Nakuru. It is an act of criminality against basic values of common decency. It is a direct assault to our democracy and rights of Kenyans as enshrined in our Constitution. And Article 33 of our Constitution, which was given to us as a heritage by President Kibaki, every person has the right to freedom of expression, a right that includes the guarantee for the Butere girls to perform their play without fear or intimidation. The artistic expression is protected under the law. Article 34 further guarantees the freedom and independence of the media. Let us be clear, this Ruto regime has crossed the Rubicon. To the courageous students of Butere Girls, your resolve, even as you sang our national anthem in the face of riot gear and arms, has become a renewed symbol of hope, just like our Gen Zs. You are the true guardians of Kenya's future, bold, unyielding, and principled. Let it be known today, as we honor President Kibaki, who promulgated our sacred document 15 years ago on August 27, 2010, that we will continue to defend the Constitution. We will protect all Kenyans' freedoms and rights, and we will not be silenced, not today, not now, not ever. We say this in honor of His Excellency, President Mwai Kibaki. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think you clap for him again. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now let me go back to our now officially program. I think each one of you have a program of today. Before I start, let me take this opportunity to thank the committee, organizing committee of these events. That is in your paper, the back, your left side. There's a committee members' names there. There's Professor Peter Kagwanja, Professor Michael Chege, Professor Kibaki Kibwana, Dr. Mohisa Kitui, and myself, the Madam Judy, who is with us here, and also Ambassador Joka, I hope you are around. Abdul Latif, who is our MC of today, and our secretariat. Let me sincerely thank this committee. We have started meeting and organizing these events of today from January up to today, up to yesterday. I think that's the end of the yesterday, so that today you can have these events. I sincerely thank all of you, Please, we shall be with you, and the next year, God willing, we shall be continue to do the same job. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Jacob Haji. I'm a Secretary General of Democratic Party. Before I continue, let me recognize former NIS Director Michael Gachagua. Please wave your sign and just tell them. Thank you. And let me recognize also leadership of the Democratic Party. NEC members, can you please stand and wave your sign? Hakuna moja hata moja hapa. Oh, mumibotea. Thank you. And let me recognize also Democratic Foundation members. Dr. Joka, I think Dr. Joka is here, and the chair of that foundation. Thank you, Ambassador. This foundation was started by Mzee some times back. Actually, that time I was a student in the university. So we still continue with what Mzee told us to do with it, and continue to keep it. Hata kama yeye hapana yuko tuweke, ina continue with that spirit. It is now great pleasure to call Mzee Munyao on behalf of the party to speak to us. Vile wameanza chama, hawa ndio group moja chama. Norman Nyaga ako hapa, namuona akuja aseme kidogo, alafu then from there we will take the other side of the politics. Thank you. Mzee Munyao, please mpigie makofi. Kuna wakati nilienda Denmark, Norway sorry, nikakuta mzee kama huyo wakati tuliitwa kwa delegates ya convention of the party, Conservative Party, tuliinvitiwa huko. Nikaona wazee ambao wanabeba na wheelbarrow, and not wheelbarrow, what do you call it, the wheelchair. 9 of them wanakuja kukaa hapa wakitazama what they have done and celebrating their parties. So sasa sisi tuko na sambo kama hiyo moja hapa, na mwingine nafikiri zungu ndio atatujoin. Karibu Mzee Munyao. Mpige makofi tafadhali nikukaribishe.
Thank you, Dr. Haji, Secretary General of the Democratic Party of Kenya, and all of you ladies and gentlemen. Hamujambo. The day is good, the year is good, we should go here. I will not take long, I will take a short while. But I will first rehearse something which was said by Professor Kagwanja. Has he gone out? So when you were talking, you talked about Vision 2030. It really shocked me because if I ever took over from the time Kibaki left us, I would have walked out. Because it means that I have been there doing nothing. Because if Kibaki planned for Kenya up to 2030, we have not even finished. We are still continuing with his programs and his vision. Honorable guests, fellow citizens, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon again. It is an honor to stand before you today as we commemorate the second Mwai Kibaki Memorial Service. President of the Republic of Kenya, the third president of the Republic of Kenya, was a visionary leader whose legacy has shaped Kenya into a resilient nation. His leadership brought in economic growth, a transformative constitution, and advancements in education and healthcare. Proof that resilience is not about avoiding challenges, but rising above them. Mwai Kibaki believed progress came when every Kenyan had the chance to contribute to the nation's development. His focus on infrastructure and rural development empowered ordinary citizens to shape their future. As we reflect on this legacy, let us remember that resilience means building society of opportunities for all. Let's honor this memory by embracing unity, hard work, and determination as we continue to build a strong, united Kenya. Thank you, and may President Kibaki legacy continue to inspire us all. DP, for those who found it, was formed way back. We formed it way back in 1977. It's true we got the document 1992, but we formed it 1977. And in Parliament, when we are there, we used to walk out, those who knew what we are doing, to walk out and go somewhere behind in Parliament, near an office which was Norman Nyaga's, because he was controlling us, Parliament, and then talk in there. Because outside we could not, you knew the kind of pressure everybody was during that time. So we had only to talk up there and then part. But 1992, we got that document from the registrar. Immediately we got that document, Kibaki, myself, and Honorable Karume left here because when we had formed a DP, there is an American who was coming here to talk to us, an ambassador, and he was prevented at the airport because he was told, now where are you going? I'm going to teach democracy in Kenya. He said, you walk out, guys. No, nothing like that. He was refused. So during that time, 1992, immediately we got the document because that leader from USA had been, he went from there, he just went back, he didn't continue. So immediately we got the document, we flew from there to Washington. At that time, there was the president who was carrying. And we went there with our document. We told the American government, here you are in Kenya now, we are a democratic country. You can come anytime you want. He also said, now with all that saying, you also stay around there for as long as you want. And we said we were required back in Kenya. So we were there just for about 2 weeks and then came back. So DP started longer than the printed one, 1992. Thank you.
Asante sana. Tafadhali nimkumbushe makofi kidogo. Asante sana mzee Munyang. Now, let me take this opportunity to now invite family to speak. Judy, I think we are going to speak on behalf of the family. Please come and speak to us. We have started this program with the family and the party. Karibu Judy, thank you. Makofi, please.
After this, there's lunch, so don't leave. Okay. So I don't have much I want to say. I just want to welcome you all and to say to the Democratic Party leadership, thank you for organizing this event. And I wish to recognize the presence of the two deputy presidents, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka and Honorable Rigathi Gachagua. You're welcome. It's significant that you're here, Deputy President, because, as you know, our late dad was a vice president for 10 years, President Mwai's vice president. So your presence here is recognition of his standing in history. Thank you. Ambassador Mudhaura, thank you very much for joining us. You were a pillar of strength. Mzee could not have done it without you. And who else? Honorable Justin Muturi, karibu sana. I know you served, you were a member of parliament during Mzee's tenure, and we recognize your presence. Karibu sana. And I don't want to forget anybody. I'm told politicians are very sensitive. So let me say, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are greatly honored by your presence here today. It has been a great pleasure to host you and to also receive your warmth as we remember our father, the third President of the Republic of Kenya. From the presentations made today and the vibrant discussions, it is clear that we all know that Kenya has the human resource and goodwill to grow to even greater heights of prosperity. As we leave here, let us hold that thought and continuously strive to be a part of the development process in whatever small or big way we can manage. It is our collective efforts that matter. On behalf of my family, I thank you and the following for all that they have done to make this event memorable: the organizing committee, Professor Michael Shege, Professor Kibutha Kibwana, Dr. Mukisa Kitui, Professor Peter Kagwanja. We thank you all very much from the deepest depths of our hearts, and please stay on for lunch. And we also look forward to seeing you again in next year's memorial lecture. God bless you all.
Thank you, Judy. On behalf of the family, we thank you so sincerely, because we have been in that committee with you for all those 3 months organizing this committee. Somebody asked me the other day, why the Democratic Party do these things last year and this year? I look at him, nikanyamaza. Akasema Kibaki alikuwa na kitu naitwa BNU na NAC. Akasema, nikamuuliza yeye, wewe ulikuwa na bibi ngapi? Yule mtu akanyamaza. So we always recognized the first family, some of us, because Kibaki was elected to do that party twice. He was official opposition in this country. We have never had from the Democratic Party official opposition. Hii ingine wakiingia tu kidogo namna wamenyakuliwa wameingia kwa serikali. So this country we have never had official opposition since 1997 up to 2001. Therefore, we are continue to remember that is our leader. He's the one who formed this party. So we shall continue with the family to remember him for all this. And there is something Mzee Munyao forgot it. One day, Mzee summoned us. Alimwambia huyu atulete. Mimi na Rosemary huyo na Matela. I wonder why Mzee calling us. And it was almost the last term, the last year of the first term. And it was on Saturday, 8 o'clock. Mzee Mwai was a minister for livestock. He told me, mkuja kabisa kwa ofisi yangu saa 2. We met him there. And then we went with him up to State House. We met Mzee. Yeye na the State House controller. This tall man, what is his name? Murade. That person. Then haya, munaendelea namna gani na chama? Kameleza ndio mambo yuko. Tuliongea mambo ya kumaliza, akasema sikizeni sasa. Sisi tuko kwa serikali huko. Na nyinyi mko huko mnafanya kazi nyingine. Kwa hivyo hiyo chama mchunge. Usiharibu hiyo chama, inaweza kutokea kiongozi mwingine kuongoza hii nchi vizuri. That is his word from that mzee. Some of us we have never forgot that things. That is why tunangangana tu tunashikilia chama isimalizike. At least when some of us were around and we know that words, what we have been told that mzee, we say hiyo kitu isiushe. And I want to appeal leadership of Nyeri. I think most of you senior people, politicians, mko hapa. Please, I plead to you. That constituency of Othaya, na hata ikiwezekana 2 MCAs, iwe ichaguliwe na mtu kutoka Democratic Party. So that continues. So that continues of remembering that mzee. Even if some of us were not there, we shall continue to be there. Sasa kama mahali yeye umetoka mwenyewe, nyinyi mnaweka watu wengine, chama si inakuwa namna gani? Nani atakumbuka hii mzee jamani? Tafadhalini, I plead to you, mwangalie huko. Now, mimi namaliza. I want to call a son of Nyeri from that Nyeri, a senior person, to take over now from here to introduce this team which is come with. Also, atuambie njia gani tutaelekea na mambo gani inaendelea. The people's deputy president, Gachagua. Please, makofi. Tupatie kofi.
Thank you very much, Haji. The family of Mzee wetu Mwai Kibaki, the third president of the Republic of Kenya, distinguished guests, the panelists, the professors who have talked to us, and all the people who have come here for this memorial lecture and luncheon for the greatest president of our times, the late Mzee Mwai Kibaki. Good afternoon. I'm really very honored that I was invited to come for this lecture, and I want to thank the professors who spoke here to us about the leadership of Mzee Mwai Kibaki. Mzee Mwai Kibaki is a legend. He's a reference point in matters governance. And anybody who talks about governance in this country, there is reference to his leadership. He left a legacy that remains permanent, that is visible, and that is felt. His greatest achievement was the economic restoration and transformation of this country. And because I'm somebody who listens to the ordinary people, they tell me, don't tell us about economic growth, don't tell us about economic survey, Don't tell us the economy has improved from this percentage to this percentage. We want to feel the growth the way we felt it when Kibaki was president. Because there was money in circulation, there was infrastructural development that is feasible, and people say they don't want to be told theories. They want to feel economic growth the way they felt it when Mwai Kibaki was president between the year 2002 and 2013. I want to really acknowledge the culture of hard work that the late president inculcated in all of us, asking people to work hard. I remember when he was sworn in as president and he made his first visit to Uzalendo, and those of us from Nyeri were very excited to welcome our son home, and we were lining up everywhere waiting for him. And when he reached Karatina, where I was, he didn't come out of the vehicle. And he lowered the window by a few inches, and then called the PC, akamuuliza, bwana PC, nini naendelea hapa? Hii watu yote, it was around 11. Nani nachuna majani chai? Nani yuko kwa shamba ya kahawa? Hapana, 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 tutaharibu. Tukiendelea namna hii tutaharibu. He put the window up and drove to Uzalendo. Nobody ever came again to meet Mwai Kibaki. Watu walienda kwa mashamba. And that is how this country was transformed. The culture of hard work. I want to say that many people today who are solid in this country, I included, we made our money during the time of Mwai Kibaki. Because government documents were respected. If you had an LPO issued to you from government, you could walk into a bank and get 50% as LPO financing. Because you do the work and you would get paid. Today, if you go to an LPO, to a bank, nobody will talk to you. He really dignified government contracts by making sure that contracts were only given when money was available and there was budgetary support. These great men pushed taxation, and we want today, as we remember him in a very fond manner, to say there's nothing wrong with the taxation. And Kenyans cannot be accused of refusing to pay taxes, because Mwai Kibaki did it. Lipa kodi, ujitegemee, and people paid taxes, and they didn't complain because they saw a corresponding development and services. Kenyans don't have a problem with paying taxes, but Kenyans have a big problem in paying taxes that they cannot see what the money is doing. So we want to ask our brothers now in government to know that Kenyans are not complaining about overtaxation because they don't want to pay tax. They have a problem of paying taxes that are misappropriated, that are not used appropriately. And Mwai Kibaki is a living testimony that Kenyans are willing to pay taxes, but they want to see a corresponding service and development. Mwai Kibaki respected institutions. Ambassador Muthaura is here, and Ambassador, we want to salute you. Mwai Kibaki would not have succeeded without the support of the bureaucracy that you led. But he also allowed you to work, because we know he allowed people to work. Because if you have a supporting system that supports you, it can only be effective to support you if you allow them to work. Mwai Kibaki respected institutions, and going forward, that must be the way for this country, so that institutions can work. Again, we must remember him for the 2010 Constitution, and all those who say that they remember him fondly, the way to dignify his legacy is to implement the Constitution and follow it letter and spirit. Because when we do that, we'll have a good country. Mwai Kibaki spoke very little and did much. Most of us are learning from him. Nowadays, I only talk once a week. I'm becoming a good student of Mwai Kibaki. Going forward, I will talk after 2 weeks, then one a month, because he spoke very little and did a lot. You know, and I think you don't need to speak much. You just work, and work can be seen. And if you remember free primary education, it was real. Today it isn't. And Mwai Kibaki didn't have to talk about it. How kuipigia debe, he did it, and it was there for everybody to see and to feel. Let me, Judy and your siblings, thank you, because many people do not appreciate the place of family in leadership. There's no leader who can succeed if you don't have family support. The fact that Mwai Kibaki was a very successful leader in this country speaks volume of the support that the family gave him. And therefore, as we celebrate him, we want to honor the family for standing behind your father, supporting him at home, and allowing him to dedicate his life to the service of this great republic. Again, we also want to honor the Kibaki family because despite many challenges and temptations, you never allowed yourselves to be misused by entrepreneurs to spoil the name of your father and yourselves. Mwai Kibaki is gone, but his integrity and that of his family remains up. Nobody has ever seated Mwai Kibaki and his family in any scandal in this country. And we know the temptations around family by people who want to use proximity to power. So you have really dignified your father because his name is good and nobody has ever thrown him into anything that would have looked conflict of interest or commercial interest for his tenure in State House. He did a good job, and we want to really salute the family because that is really the way to go. Dr. Mukisa Kitui, we are envious of the cabinet you served at Mwai Kibaki, that you are allowed to speak. Justin Muturi and I can tell you, in the cabinet we served, it's only me and him who could speak. And that is why we had to be edged out. The rest are flower girls and praise and worship choir. So we would have wanted, you know, if things could reverse and we served at Mwai Kibaki, we would have enjoyed, because he would have allowed us to contribute, to make meaningful contribution to the management of the affairs of this country. Haji, I've heard you correctly about the place of DP in Othaya, but I'm more concerned not even about DP in Othaya. I am more concerned about the quality of leadership in that constituency that was led by Mwai Kibaki. A graduate of the London School of Economics, the greatest president of all times, a man who represented Othaya with wisdom, a man who was a good debater. Then when he was gone, the replacement of Mwai Kibaki, like today, it's a shame. Member of Parliament who never speaks in Parliament at all, who hasn't made any contribution on the floor of the House. And Othaya now is a pale shadow of the Othaya under Mwai Kibaki. Coming this general election in 2027, we shall talk to the people of Othaya to dignify the late Mwai Kibaki by looking for a quality legislator who, even if he cannot measure up to the level of Mwai Kibaki, can be there 60–70%. But the present situation in Othaya is embarrassing and is very demeaning to the late Mwai Kibaki and his family. And Othaya people are crying for a change, and we'll be having conversation with them so that they can look for quality leadership that can be able to hold the name of that great old man in high repute. So mimi nimeshukuru sana, tuko hapa na viongozi wengi ambaye Sijui Haji, unataka tuwapatie, unataka tufanye namna gani to introduce them? What do you want to
introduce them? Dakika moja moja waseme.
Yeah, tuko na the Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, kiongozi wetu. Kuja useme jambo. His late brother was vice president to Mwai Kibaki. Na alikuwa na kizungu mingi sana. Hata huyu wako na kizungu mingi. Sio mingi. But he served Mwai Kibaki well. So kuja sema jambo.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Kibaki family, the DP leadership, the distinguished panel, and distinguished guests. Good afternoon. Let me start by thanking the Kibaki family and also the DP leadership for giving us the opportunity to be here today to remember a great leader. And as His Excellency has said, I think he's the most consequential leader of our republic. And as we remember him today, we remember words of a wise man who said that sometimes we are all warmed by fires we did not light, and we drink from wells we did not dig. This great leader, when you look at his symbol, there was something very unique about Kibaki. It was always about light. His symbol ya DP ilikuwa ni taa, mwangaza, lighting the way. When we came to NAC and several of our parties came together, my late brother had fought Kenya, we had others. Forming NAC again, Kibaki chose light, mwenge, yes, the torch, yes, to light the way. And the light that he left us is the Vision 2030. That is still the light guiding the journey that is our national development. We're in 2025. We have 5 years to go to 2030. So as we meet here today as leaders, let us start thinking about another light that from 2027, as we form the next government, we can have a leadership that can light another light beyond 2030, beyond Africa Agenda 2063. And I see that leadership in this room. I see the next government in this room. I thank the organizers for choosing this historic venue. Mwai Kibaki once met here with his friend Wamalwa Kijana and his other friend Charity Ngilu. The late Kihika Kimani asked, ni nini wanaume wawili wanafanya na mwanamke mmoja kwa hoteli? Kumbe Kibaki was forming the next government. Yes. So those of you who are here, Kibaki's friends, let us look at this as a 202 moment. Let us drink from this well of inspiration, and let us be inspired to save our country, because apart from Vision 2030, the greatest legacy left us was the Constitution. He appointed me as Minister for Justice, and I remember when I invited him to address the judiciary, they were bidding him farewell. I told him, Mr. President, I don't know what historians will write about you. What would be your greatest legacy? They would have a hard time because they would wonder whether free primary education was your greatest legacy. They would wonder whether the phenomenal infrastructure development was your greatest legacy. But I told him, Your Excellency, I think your greatest legacy will be the Constitution 2010. All we need to do as a country is to remain and to protect that Constitution and to implement it fully and faithfully. It's being violated time and again. It was violated last year on the 25th of June when young people, the Gen Z, were slaughtered, demanding for accountability, good governance, and an end to corruption. Yesterday I was in Nakuru as a lawyer acting for Butere Girls. We are not talking about the Gen Z. This is the Gen Alpha. Kids, children being tear gassed, being injured, being denied one of the most fundamental freedoms in that Constitution, freedom of expression. A child should be allowed to express themselves freely, not as a favor from the state, but it is a constitutional protection of our children, nationally and internationally. So as we remember Mwai Kibaki, let us remember to remain and to uphold fidelity to our Constitution and to get in place the right leadership in 2027. Thank you and God bless you.
I think Ambassador Muthaura, please come and say something. We look upon you in public service. You are such a mentor.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. I really wish to congratulate very much all those who have organized this event. Sometimes in Kenya, we forget our leaders. And what we are doing now is to make sure that we don't forget our leaders. Through appreciation, we become visionary so that we are able to do more and value our contributions to the country. I want to say that the professors who spoke to us about Kibaki, I think they spoke very well, but I think they forgot a few things which would have even made their presentations very strong. And this is education. I think Kibaki made a great impact in this country on education, not just primary. You know, because the party came with the free primary. But soon after that, Kibaki introduced free day secondary so that to expand, the middle, the middle education. So that really expanded education in this country. It did not stop there. He also introduced Tibet technical education so that every county, and to have a technical institute to empower people. More than that, expanded the university education from 6 public universities to 22. And soon after, the number went even up to, I think, 33, 34. So for me, the impact that Kibaki has had on education is really what is transforming this country. There's no doubt. Sometimes we get a bit worried about the youth in the country, but the youth has been empowered. So we have a responsibility as leaders to make sure that we act ahead of the youth by expanding the economy. I'll tell you how, when Mungiki became a nuisance, when the Ministry of Youth was created, was in response to the Mungiki menace. And we realized, Kibaki realized, that a lot of these people, youth, are idle. What do we do to make sure that they have opportunities for employment? So what we did was, to take care of the youth was to expand the education, of course, so that they stay in school longer and they are more technically empowered to do that. Then on top of that, he really identified the sectors that needed to be expanded so that they can create more jobs. At that time, Nairobi, there were no high-rise buildings. In fact, we used to have Nyayo high-rise somewhere near down Nairobi Dam, Nyayo high-rise as more estate. There was Kariako, which was done very early, and a small high-rise also estate in Outer Ring. We didn't have high-rise apartments. So Kibaki opened up Nairobi for high-rise buildings and multi-purpose, multiple use of buildings, not just residential. You can imagine Upper Hill were just bungalows. How many people are in Upper Hill in bungalows in one week each? how many people? Places like Kilimani, places like all these areas around Nairobi, even Parklands, Westlands, Lavington, they were just bungalows with very few people. People having just 1 acre in one house, a family of 2 or 3. So you opened up and look at Nairobi today. I mean, all these high-rise have created also jobs, a lot of jobs. So really what I'm saying here is that Kibaki really valued think tanks very much. That's why the Economic and Social Council could come up with various options. And once he's convinced about the best option available, he would just give us, targets. There's no two-way. You are given targets. You have to deliver. And you just say, don't talk too much. People will appreciate what they can see. Do it. When people see it, you remember the roads, the development of the roads in the country, infrastructure, the ICT. I remember Kenya was when Kibaki took over, Kenya was very slow on adopting the new ICT transformations which were taking place globally. So he said, now, who are we going to give this ministry? We need to have somebody who can understand it. Unfortunately, those days, appointments were only restricted to members of parliament. So we got one of the members of parliament, Kagwe, who had been in information, who had been, I think, a director in the Ministry of Information. He could understand more about information technology. Then he asked now, and the permanent secretary, where do we get one who can understand this ICT? Morage said he knows of somebody, a Kisi, Demo, in the university, who was in America, and he is very good in that area. So the two people are appointed. And the first thing they did was to review where we were. And then they realized there was a regional program to bring marine fiber cable to East Africa, because we did not have, that's why we are lagging behind. We're just using the satellite. So the first thing, they went to South Africa, where there was a regional meeting just to push that agenda. When they went there, they found people were just talking at cross purpose, as the program was too slow. They came and told the president, Your Excellency, this project, this fiber cable, unless we have it, marine fiber cable, we shall not take off. And if we wait for the regional project, we may wait for another 10 years. Why can't we do it ourselves? Kibaki asked them, and what is the cost implication? What is the cost? He told them it's about $130 million, and he consulted with some companies. About $130 million, they would land the marine fiber cable in Mombasa. Then the president said, yeah, we don't have that $130 million, but we can find it. I'm sure we should be able to find that money in our budget. Go ahead. It's as simple as that. You convince him, he tells you, go ahead, we shall find the money in our budget. Now, I don't have to elaborate where Kenya is now on ICT. It was so bright and so forward-looking, that any idea that could make a difference, he embraced it and then moved very fast. The highways, you know, the Thika Road, the parliament was complaining, members of the parliament were complaining, the road was in very bad condition. It needed to be recarpeted. What do you call it? Recarpeted, refurbished. It was just 4 lanes from Nairobi to Thika. So we sent Kamau, who was the roads engineer, to African Development Bank. He went there, and the African Development Bank asked for statistics, what have you. I told him, now, this road with only 4 lanes cannot serve this traffic, which is one of the heaviest in Africa. You need to think of a minimum of 6 lanes, 6 to 8 lanes, for it to make sense. So they came and briefed the president. The president told them, I think those people are making a lot of sense. Let's do it. We shall try to improvise money and do it. At that time, that $1 billion was like a lot of money. But once that road was done, in fact, it was done in a period of about 2 to 3 years, perfectly. That gave Kenya ambition about highways. And now, I don't have to say about what happened in Nairobi. I don't have to tell you what happened in the rest of the country, because we developed a lot of highways throughout Kenya. And Kenya now is one of the best served countries in Africa in highways. So I thought I needed to say that, to know that, you know, leadership is not just, it requires a lot of thinking also. Thinking, deep thinking, and that's what we had. The president did not have a lot of time for a lot of talking. He wanted to entertain a lot of ideas and discussions. And once he is convinced, then money was not a problem. The other thing which I think may not have been very clear here is that he set limits at how much money you can use administratively. He wanted a minimum of 30% to be used for development, for investment. So whenever you are presenting a budget, your budget should be like a maximum of 70% administrative and 30% investment for development. And really that made us have a balance between the development and the consumption. And that was because we are being led by an economist called Kibaki. We want to balance the investment and the consumption. And that went on very well. The other thing is, as an economist, he did not want to add more taxes. I remember he asked us to review more taxes. When we reviewed, he said there's nothing wrong with these taxes. We don't have to add more. All that we have to do is to make tax correction more efficient and also make people own, tax, call it responsibility. The people, the Kenyan people have to own tax responsibility. And to my surprise, within the first 1 year, we moved the revenue from about 400. Mwai's revenue, total revenue was about 400, I think 40, something like that. To 600, I think about 60 or 50. So the jump was a lot. We did not add any taxes. And then by the third year, we are around $1 billion. Trillion. So, in other words, their taxation is not just more and more taxes. It's actually the efficiency and the public ownership of the taxes. So I really want to say that those are a few things, but I can talk and talk and talk because I learned a lot from our Excellency the President. He was a source of wisdom. If I tell you the way he handled the post-election violence, because that was like violence imposed on him, the way he handled it was unique in Africa because he did not want that violence to continue. He wanted it concluded as quickly as possible. And that's why he agreed very fast to have a Grand Coalition. When the Grand Coalition was formed, he treated all ministers equally. Not to say this is this minister, this is ministers who are his huntsmen, and they are to deliver in their sector. I remember also, with the experience that we had a post-election violence at that time, we realized the violence actually should have been controlled, but we didn't have enough policemen. We had very few policemen in the country. We looked even at the military. We had very few people. The military. Our military were very, numbers. We just give orders so that we don't go through those type of experiences again. Double the number of police and the number of military, so that the country has stability. And those type of decisions are not just made by anybody. They are made by people who are seeing far. And really, to me, I think people are writing a book, but at that time I was writing mine. I don't know whether they published that book of Kibaki. I think it was published, but more needs to be done to be written about Kibaki. Thank you very much.
Attorney General Emeritus Justin Muturi, please don't be as brief as the ambassador. Don't be as brief as the ambassador.
Exactly.
He was too brief.
Thank you to the family of His Excellency President Mwai Kibaki, the organizing committee, the panelists, and all of us that have attended this second lecture. Good afternoon. I will try to copy Ambassador Mudaura. But let me say this, and indeed I intend to be extremely brief, because many people may not think, when I speak in the presence of Norman Nyaga, my good friend Mzee Joe Consolo Munyao, when I claim to be old, they always laugh at me. They think I'm a small boy. Now that I'm also claiming to be old, in that for the longest time, even when I was a young man, Norman, even as a student in high school, there's only one person in the Kenyan political leadership that I always loved to one day meet, It was President Mwai Kibaki. But because we have been told quite some exciting stuff by the panelists, Mzee Munyao, and now Ambassador Mudaura, I want to just pick one point, not about his eloquence and his capacity to debate any topic in Parliament, which I found quite unique, but it's something that I think, for me, I emulate from President Mwai Kibaki. We've talked about the many gifts that he has left this country. Talked about Vision 2030. And my worry is just that as it comes to an end, we may get into some darkness. His Excellency Rigathi has always been telling people that whenever it gets very dark, it's just about dawn. You're just about to get to some light. But I fear for the country if it gets too dark. This document that at every time, and it's a dictates to, before you take up any state job, you must swear by the Constitution to defend it, to uphold it, to protect it. As my brother Eugene pointed out, dedicated the whole chapter, chapter 6. But know what? Actually, you don't need to read chapter 6. You just need to follow the public life of the longest serving member of parliament so far in this country, Mwai Kibaki. Chapter 6 is on leadership and integrity. How it is that somebody could have been in public life, in politics, that long, and to date, you don't hear anybody saying, oh, they planned this, they planned Thika Highway, but in the process of planning Thika Highway, there was this which was supposed to sort out some things. This, for me, is extremely important. Even as we read that chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. We've been told about ICT. How I wish we all in leadership could borrow a leaf that when we come up with projects, public projects, we don't do so because we have hidden private interests in there. Because virtually everything we do these days, as you go through the documents, you come to realize, oh, there's something here which is not very clear. How is it that President Mwai Kibaki went through it, Minister for Finance, Minister for Health, Assistant Minister, but you can't hear. And in those very critical dockets, to date you cannot see or hear what we hear today. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, whether you read chapter 6, read about President Mwai Kibaki to know what it is. When we talk about good governance, when we talk about integrity in public leadership, in office, you just need to read the history of Mwai Kibaki. Then you can read chapter 6 as kind of a lullaby, because when you read the history of Mwai Kibaki, then integrity in public leadership, in public office, will become so clear to you that you don't need to read anything else. Many of you, I'm sure, are religious people, either Muslims or Christians or Hindus. You know, virtues, the virtues of integrity, honesty. I think there's a lot that we can learn just by reading the life of President Mwai Kibaki, because it amazes me how somebody could have been in leadership, rising to the highest office, and you still cannot hear anything, not touching even on his family, not touching him, not even his close friends. It speaks volumes. That is the legacy of Mwai Kibaki that I live with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Tumeshukuru sana. Ambassador Mudhaura talked about housing that Mwai Kibaki did, and it triggered my mind when William Ruto brought the affordable housing and there was outcry out there. People are saying they be left alone to do their own houses. And I had a conversation with him, and he says, no, we need houses. And I told him, Mwai Kibaki did a lot of housing, but not the actual construction. The government did not have a housing program. All Mwai Kibaki did was to open up the bypasses, provide infrastructure in terms of sewage, electricity, and water. And the private sector, on its own, build houses all over Nairobi. And they are there for everybody to see. There is no need for government to compete with the private sector to put up houses. The work of government is not to do houses, it's to provide services. And of course, he said, I'm not Mwai Kibaki, I will do things differently. So one of the things we intend to do, those of us who are like-minded who want to have a regime change in 2027, is to scrap the housing levy and reinstate the housing initiative to the private sector by government just providing services. Just do roads, water, open up, and things will just come up on their own. Again, I must say, I went to see Mwai Kibaki in 1988. I was a student leader at the University of Nairobi. I was the chairman of the Nyeri University Student Association. And through my then member of parliament, the late Mwai, I sought an appointment to see the vice president, and I went to his office in Jogo House. And we had a lot of discussion, and he wanted to know what are my ambitions, and I told him I'm interested in business. I had thought he would give me some money to start the business. Not Mwai Kibaki. He went on his shelf behind him, there were many books. And he looked through, produced one book and gave it to me. That book, the author is called Jonathan Black. It's called The Oil. He said, if you want to do business, go and read this book, you'll be a good businessman. That is his mentorship, and today I'm a good businessman, instead of tokenism. Judy, please work quickly to finish the mausoleum in Othaya, because much as we are having this ceremony here, the villagers back home would like to celebrate Mzee, and they would like to come and remember him. And since we cannot bring them here to Nairobi to listen to Professor Kagwanja and foreign policy, they would just like to come to Othaya just to remember the old man for what he did for the people of Othaya, for what he did for the people of this country. Professor Kagwanja, thank you. On the foreign policy, you have told us Mwai Kibaki, his foreign policy was based on the best interest for this country. The other day I talked about our foreign policy in Sudan that is driven by commercial interest. And I saw one of the Root of Flower girls yesterday trying to lecture me that I shouldn't talk about it because I saw to some constitution. The constitution that I and Muturi saw to is to do the right thing and to keep the law. It's not to enable other countries to buy arms to kill children. And Eugene Wamalwa, we are looking at what is happening about Butere girls. We are unable to understand what is this viciousness against children by the present government. Even the colonial government that was very brutal, it never went for the children. Muzungu, they were very brutal, but they spared the children. So we have seen a situation where an administration has panicked because this one term is becoming real. So they have gone berserk. They have gone berserk, and they are now fighting shadows, including schoolgirls. From 2 girls, from 3 girls. These are harmless girls. How fluid is your government if girls can bring it down? Girls. Surely. So when you look at the situation in the Sudan, we are allowing gold to be processed in Kenya and guns to be smuggled through Nairobi to go and kill children in the Sudan. So we are asking, what is this bile against young children? We saw the killing of the Gen Zs, the abductions of young children. What is this bile against innocent young children? So as we move on, let's pray for the country. And Ambassador, again, to shukuru wewe. Now I'm looking at General Gachagua here, and I want to say, if General Gachagua was the director of NIS, that play would not have been banned in Nakuru if it had to be banned. Because it came all the way from the sub-county, nobody noticed. It went to the county, nobody noticed. It went to the region and it became number 3, nobody noticed. They only noticed about it in Nakuru, in the finals, because of a failed intelligence system. That will not happen. So if a decision needed to be made that is a bad play and people should not see it, ingesimamishiwa huko mbali, because the officers on the ground every day, lakini watu wote wamelala, kila mtu natafuta pesa. Hii serikali ni ya biashara. Watu ya intelligence wanatafuta biashara, watu ya polisi wanatafuta biashara, rais mwenyewe anatafuta biashara. Sasa, these are things that would make Mwai Kibaki turn in his grave. Tuko na shida kubwa, lakini Mungu anatusaidia. So Jacob Haji, we are forming a political party in May. Tutatangaza. We look for a way to work with the Democratic Party. We would like to be associated with Mwai Kibaki and what he achieved. Wacha ni introduce huyu Ketu Waruguru, simama, pigia makofi. Huyu mrembo ya Laikipia. And we have our daughter. She's called Gatha in Kikuyu land. The Honorable Gathoni wa Muchomba. Tuko na Masi Kakuya, alikuwa mjumbe hapo Kasarani. She has been associated with this party for a long time. Of course, tuko na Norman Nyaga na wengine, na tumeshukuru sana, and the organizers of this function, we are honored. Tuko na Jane Kihara, the great lady of Naivasha. Alichaguliwa as an MP kwa hii chama ya Democratic Party. She's a third member, ako kwa tamu ya 3. Na nikali anaangushaga wanaume 7 kila uchaguzi. Wote wanaweka chini. These strong women, they are strong people. So tumeshukuru sana, and thank you very much, and asanteni sana Ambassador Muthaura and your team that supported Mwai Kibaki. We honor you because you made him great by serving him well and helping him to steer this country, even as he advanced in age. His things were going very, very well. But again, it is him who gave you the opportunity and allowed you to work. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much.
Haya, mupige makofi. The people deputy president. Sio ndio hiyo? Yeye sio mtu kuandikwa, alichaguliwa na wananchi. Simpigie makofi basi tusikie. Haya, asante sana. Now hata mimi mnipigie sasa makofi sababu nimemaliza shughuli yangu. I'll now hand over to Juma kuja chukue takeover.
Secretary General DP. A round of applause for all that third session. We had great minds. People have taken us down the history line, and we really appreciate. There are two people between us and lunch, and I'll kindly request them to be very brief. Our chairman DP and the party leader. Tafadhali. Chairman first, perhaps the party leader.
Asanteni sana. Mimi sita commit your offense going against the constitutional right of the stomach. So I will be very brief. I don't want to be accused for that. Yangu kumtakia heri, mwambia asanteni for being that patient up to now. Mengi has been spoken about Mwai Kibaki. I used to be his security advisor, for those who don't know. And I used to be very close to him. And I come from Odaya. Kibaki, for wale wote wameongea, I haven't heard anyone saying that Kibaki was a difficult person, because he was very difficult but very diplomatic. Hakuwa mtu ya kuwa moved just like that. Even ministers, when they came to talk to him, alikuwa na washiria hawa wanaongea. He would never stop you akwambie, you don't know your ministry, I know your ministry better than you. Never. He would never say it. Lakini mwisho he would just suggest, tukiongeza hii au tuache hii itakuwaje? Where do you answer your question? Na wakati umeongea and you speak all the through, yeye mwenyewe alikuwa na kitabu kidogo kama hii, anatoa anaandika. When you meet next, atakuuliza wakati ulikuwa hapa tarehe fulani, anatoa hiyo karatasi, tuliagree on the following. Sasa imefika wapi? Ministers learned about that at that time. They used to come to see him very well prepared, kwa sababu alikuwa anajua atatoa hiyo karatasi kwa mfuko yake. Hata mliona siku nyingine huko Mombasa akitafuta hiyo karatasi kwa mfuko yake huko Gema. He didn't know where he had put them. Yale ingine I would like to confirm is what Mheshimiwa Gachagua amesema. He wanted people to work. Because I remember one time when we were coming from London after hospitalization, tukapita Njogoo Road. Mimi mwenyewe nilikuwa namshikilia shingo hivi sababu he had problem with the neck, na mkono ingine isianguke. Yeye mwenyewe aliangalia akasema, hawa wote watu wamejaa hapa wamekuja because of us. Kamwambia, yes your excellency, hawa wote ni watu yetu, lakini hawa wote wamewasha biashara yao na nani? Ndio anje kwa barabara. You see, that was the type of a president who cared for production in the country. The same thing he did in Odaya. Aliuliza watu wamewasha majani chai, wamewasha kahawa, wamewasha ng'ombe, wamekuja kutuangalia. Who is doing this? This should be in their farms instead of wasting time. Tukama na delegation kubwa kutoka Udhaya na Nyeri huko State Road Sagana. You see, hawa walikuja and in their memorandum wakauliza mambo ya pesa. You see, Akauliza mambo ya pesa. Kibaki aliwajibu, pesa ni nyingi sana, iko huko bank. You see? Si pesa ya bure, pesa iko bank, na mkichukua hiyo pesa kwa bank, mfanyie kazi na mrudishie bank pesa yao. You see? Hii mambo ya handouts, Kibaki hakujua hiyo. No. So, that is the sort of man we are celebrating today. The sort of man we are celebrating today. Nilisema he was not that easy. Because I remember one time, I told him the convoy would not start until he has his belt, his safety belt on. Aliniangalia akasema, nani amesema hiyo? Kamwambia, Your Excellency, I'm the one who has said it. Because hiyo ndio kazi ulinipatia. To look after your security and your safety. And without this belt, without having your belt, a safety belt on, this convoy will not start. Kaniangalia, akaniambia basi, weka. Nikaenda huko nikafuruta, nikamwambia. You see? Siku ingine tukachelewa usiku. Tukitoka Meru kusika Mrs. Mwiraria. Tulitoka huko saa 1 usiku. Kufika Embu communications zote, tukakutana na hailstorm, mvua kubwa, storm kubwa. All communication lost. Sasa sisi wengine tulikimbia Sagana tutafute, so we could not see each other, we could not communicate. Tukiwa Mwea na Sagana looking for him, alikuwa Thika tayari. So I knew I was in trouble. So the following day I went to his office. Kamwambia, sir, effective today, you will never travel after 6:30. Aliniangalia akasema, tena hiyo umetoa wapi? Kamwambia, sasa, Your Excellency, this is what I know. In a round over, no VIP travels after 6:30. Sababu 6:30, from 6:30 ni usiku. Sema hapana, jua iko hapa tu. Na unasema ni usiku namna gani? Kambia no, 6:30 begins at 6:30. Usiku begins at 6:30. Hata katiba, hata sheria imesema, if you break into a house before 6:30, you'll be charged with house breaking. I was explaining to him. Lakini, if you break into a house after 6:30, you'll be charged with the burglary. And burglary, nambeba, serious penalty. I had to explain to him, and he agreed on that. From that time, we never traveled again after 6:30 at night, because it's very dangerous and risky. So, kwa hivyo, that is the man we are talking about today. And that's the man who has brought us here today to remember him for all what he did for this country. Alifanya mengi, asanteni. Sasa, from there on, I think you are free. Tuende tutafutie the inner man, his benefits. Asanteni na asanteni, muende salama na mujienjoy. Asante.
Asanteni sana. A round of applause for all of you. Thank you. I think the party leader has left it to the chair. So I think I'm humbled to have an audience with you. I apologize for overshooting the time, and the party leader has to say one more word.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon again. I know the stomachs are talking, but the acting Democratic Party of Kenya party leader is talking as she prepares what you are to eat after this. May I welcome you for our second Mwai Kibaki Memorial Lecture and Lunch. My name is Veronica Waithera Maina. I am the Democratic Party acting party leader, but the confirmed deputy party leader. I'm only keeping brief for my brother, Honorable Justin Muturi. He's my elder brother. I'm only keeping brief for him. And since now he has been told that he's incompetent, I think the party knows he's competent. So karibu brother kuja tufanye kazi. He's competent. According to the party, he's very competent. And that is why DP has been here up to this point. You know, he whispered to me some 2 years back and told me, take care of the party. And I have done so. My brother, the party is intact. So come back, we start now moving around as we did. It's our weakness. Now, as we close this ceremony, I want to appreciate the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. And as we draw this special afternoon to a close, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to each and every one of you for joining us at the second Mwai Kibaki Memorial Lecture and Luncheon. Today has been more a remembrance. It has been a celebration of a visionary leader, economist, par excellence, a statesman whose legacy continues to inspire not only Kenya, but the entire Africa and globally, as we could say. We have had thoughtful reflections, powerful insights, and heartfelt tributes that have reminded us of President Kibaki's enduring impact. His commitment to education, some of us are beneficiaries, economic empowerment, good governance, and national unity. His life was a testament to integrity, intellect, and quiet but determined leadership. That's how we used to call him chairman. That's how we took our chairman. And may God, the angels, take care of him because he was a good man. To our esteemed speakers, Professor Michael Shege, who was our moderator, Professor Peter Kagwanja, who was the chairman to our organizing committee, Professor Kibudha Kibwana, Dr. Muhisa Kitui, Honorable Mother Karua, who could not be with us today. She's out of the country, but she was part of the planning, and the delegation from the UN. Thank you for your wisdom and for keeping President Kibaki's legacy alive through dialogue, reflection, and aspirations. To the organizers, those are the sponsors. We have the organizing committee, the Democratic Party officials led by J.B. Muturi, and NEC members. We also have the Democratic Foundation. We have a foundation that was started by our founder, who is Mwai Kibaki. We have a foundation. And then the Kibaki family. Judy, thank you. The many times we've met here, it is not in vain that you really loved your father. May his soul rest in peace. Okay, special thanks to our former vice president who worked with our president, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, for gracing the occasion. And he worked very closely with him. I also extend my gratitude to immediate, because I feel very wrong saying immediate former, not former. The people elected president, his deputy president, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, popularly known as Rigi G, for honoring the invitation and making this occasion very special. I remember he was supposed to be on other commitments, but he said if it's Kibaki's memorial, he will put aside everything else and be with us. Thank you, Our Excellency, for doing that. I also want to give special thanks to former AG, the immediate former CS, public service, and I've just said that being told that he's incompetent, I'm on live TV and I want to say, to DP, he's not incompetent. He's what DP has been where we are today. So don't even think about anything that can deter you from moving along. We know you, we know how you can push. DP, come back. we start working. He resigned when he was going to the government, and because you know very well, you cannot be in government and lead a political party. So he only left and whispered to me, take care of the party. And I have done so, my brother. As we part ways, let us carry forward our President Kibaki, lived by service, humility, and steadfast belief. I also appreciate the coming of our members of parliament present, former members of parliament present also, and I will conclude with wise words from President Kibaki. Leadership, and I want us to listen to these words, leadership is a privilege to better the lives of others. It is not an opportunity to satisfy personal greed, and I will underline the last 3 words. May his memory continue, inspire generations, and give hope to all Kenyans, because that is why we are here. You are all welcome to serve lunch. As we organize for a photo session, I will invite Professor Kagwanja to come in front. He's the moderator on that. And may you travel safe. Have a blessed week. Have a blessed weekend. And today is, I would say in Kiswahili, Mwamko Mpya. Thank you. Sorry, I